A company has hired a student from an MBA college to be the future leader. Now, their immediate assignments are meant to give them a flair of the business. But they, after 5 years, when they're really required to get those strategic skills out, by the time they have actually given up on those skills. So it's that intellectual preservation, if I may say, of sorts, that you need to do for the first 5 or 6 years to ensure that you still have an analytical mind, a strategic thinking mind, irrespective of what your immediate job role is, and keep all those frameworks and concepts very clear. Because when you grow into leadership positions in an organization, it is that conceptual quality which is going to help you in those roles. But if you have become too tactical by then, you will have forgotten those things and not be able to apply.
Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of ContraMinds. In today's episode, we are in conversation with Sunder Madakshira. Sundar currently serves as the Chief Executive Officer of Rezolve in India. Prior to this, he was the Head of Marketing at Adobe India. He specializes in brand management, thought leadership, and lead generation functions of marketing and is considered a pioneer in data-driven operating models in India. He is also known as a prolific lecturer at India's premier business schools and enjoys listening and learning Indian classical music. So without further ado, here is our conversation with Sunder Madakshira.
Hi, Sundar. Thanks a lot. And it's an absolute privilege to have you as a guest in the ContraMinds podcast.
Thanks, Swami. Thanks for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure. I've had the opportunity to hear some of the earlier versions, and I must say, it's an honor to be speaking to you today.
Thanks, Sundar. And I just wanted to straight away deep dive into the first uh, thing that I saw, which I think you've spoken about in many forums. Really, the currency of engagement for marketing when you started to where it is today has changed. So, what is it that has changed, and what's important maybe in the next decade for marketers? How do you think the currency of engagement needs to change?
Yeah, so thanks, Swami. I think that question that you bring up is bringing us to the absolute core of the marketing world, which is how do you really engage with your customer? How much do you know your customer? How much are you able to identify what is the medium you want to use to stay engaged? What is the best way to communicate? And in a two-way process, I think we oftentimes forget that communication is a two-way process. I think in the first marketing class that we were ever taught, I think there's a picture where we said there's an input and there's an output and there's a feedback loop. So we sometimes quite oblivious to that feedback loop, which I think which is where the engagement process actually sort of breaks down. If you ask me, I think the currency of engagement, if you if you really look at it, has not materially changed over the years, right? The customers and the brands always found a way to say, okay, how do I for the marketer to find out how am I engaged with the customer, and for the consumer to come back and say, look, this is what I feel about a brand which I truly am very I care a lot about and I'm loyal to, or it might be also I'm not loyal to anymore and I want to walk out of the brand. Right? In both the cases, people always found ways in which you can communicate to each other. But I think what's happened is because of the fact that today we have an omni-channel way of communicating. Right? This is apparently become very complex. My view, and putting it in a very simplistic way, I would say that the way in which consumers and brands have to connect with each other, the engagement, if the focus is clearly on the engagement, I don't think it has I don't see any change that has happened over the years. However, because there are more channels, I think you will have to monitor more and see what kind of engagement are you getting. Right? It's very important to not to get lost in the data, and then say that, okay, you can always, we are all very smart, we can always have a metric which sounds very familiar or very easy to us for us to conquer, but that may not be the true reflection of engagement at all. I used to always say that we have this thing called the customer satisfaction score, right? On a 0 to 5, even without doing a survey, you can say the customer satisfaction score is 3.6, right? That's because people have a tendency to give everything in the median, measures of central tendency, as they are called in statistics, because of which people give you certain score. But I've seen that in many cases, despite that score being what it is, the customer has walked away and said that no, there are things that which I did not find right. At the same time, the customer might even come back and say, has come back and say, I'm very, very loyal. So then you can always turn around and ask, why is it that you have given only 3.6? It should have been 5 on 5 for a brand that you are willing to even, to be absolutely loyal to. So I think if you have an understanding, where using multifarious metrics and multifarious ways to understand whether the customer is really engaged or not. Now, and use the first cut of data that you get to only form the hypothesis. I'm a big fan of this, saying that, okay, whatever are the first results that you get out of any kind of engagement. It could be an engagement on social media, or it could be in terms of customers telling you in a qualitative survey that they really like your brand, and it could be a brand awareness, aided awareness or unaided awareness, whatever metric you want to take, and which you believe is the right one for you, because there can't be a universal prescription for this. A new brand will think a lot about what is my brand awareness in my target audience versus somebody else who is well established. There are industries where people have been fighting for 2% market share against their competition. Those metrics are going to be different. But whatever be your metrics, I think the good idea is to use a qualitative measure to get directionally where your engagement is headed towards customers, towards from your customers. Use those qualitative measures and then put together a much more rigorous, in-depth analysis. Unilever at that time used to call it habits and attitude studies, which are much more in-depth understanding of how not just the relationship between your brand and the consumer, but the consumer and the category and the all the other allied categories also. So if you are a person who's actually trying to sell a toothpaste, you actually try and understand how that person is having an oral hygiene regime in the morning, and how does it sort of pan out for different personas and so on. So I think we should not get lost by putting some metrics and then saying whether the customer is engaged or not. Unfortunately, engagement is purely a product of the human mind, which is very complex. So one will have to get into the depth to understand what a customer really means by saying whatever he's trying to say.
So, given the fact that you are somebody who probably have lived in many cities, seen many cultures, I see you as somebody who uh, really understands people, personas, and relationship very well, and has your wide exposure to different cultures. Has that helped you in this as a background, and how does that help you when you are actually in the middle of such a important role and portfolio that you have?
So thanks, Swami. Thanks for bringing it up. I've been very fortunate. First of all, let me start by saying that I've been very fortunate. My father worked for the Indian Air Force, which meant that all our childhood, from the time that we were born till we got into engineering colleges, I have changed as many as 28 schools. And I think, I don't know, I should do a more rigorous count, but I think I have lived in 80% of the Indian states that were there. Now, of course, the number of states have gone up. So, but at that time, I think 80% of the states we have been, and wherever we went, I think there was always a choice and of actually absorbing the culture of that place. trying to learn the language, trying to understand what is the mindset, trying to understand the music which is very popular in those places. And in India is as diverse as you can even imagine. Every 50 kilometers, when we used to drive into the interior parts, we could say that the culture has changed. The way people interact with you has changed. I think this has been of great help to me as such. And I think what one trait which I picked up probably from my mother is to be able to be, talk to people in their language and in the manner which they would like to do. So you actually, in a very short period of time, you absorb the culture of a particular state or a city or a town or even a village pretty fast. I think what it helped me, the way it helps me as a marketer is that, when, first of all, I think you got to be genuinely interested in people. That's like a base line. You have to be interested in talking to people. You have to be interested in, connecting with people. That inherent trait is very, very important for a marketer. Because otherwise, if you keep on looking at only data and other things which are from a distance, you'll never get to know what your consumer is saying. There are a lot of things which are told, but there are more things which are untold. All these years of doing market research in various circumstances has taught me this. So I think what the way it helps is, number one, you first of all recognize your audience is very heterogeneous, and your segmentation variables, which is very important for you from a GTM when you're drawing a go-to-market plan, is going to be very different. So if you recognize that there is variation in your target audience, and that can be on many very interesting axes, something that you have probably not experienced or not anticipated. But if you keep your eyes and ears to the ground, I think you will observe that the market is much more complex than what you think. It's much more heterogeneous than what we all sort of assume. So it's nice to go with a high, medium, low kind of a classification, as it used to be a joke those days, that everything is high, medium, low. You start with that. Definitely, it's a good starting point. But slowly you realize that there are many, many interesting axes to which a person actually, a market can be, segmented. For example, I recently read about, and I had the opportunity to work with that brand as our customer, was with an automobile brand, which was segmenting on the basis of gender, which is the common thing. But they had used psychographic ways of segmenting the market, which meant that the primary axis of segmentation, which was gender, had to be given up, because they said it's about a car being techno savvy. So how does it matter whether it's a man or a woman? Whereas a type, if you look at a typical way we would look at it, we typecast it saying it's a man of the house who is going to decide, and if it's a woman, it has got to be a small car. So that, I think, that stereotype was broken by this brand. So I think, knowing so many languages, understanding the ethos, there are certain things you can express only in certain languages very well. And if you can absorb that, I think your ammunition available to you as a marketer about what are the multifarious ways in which you can communicate will change. And that starts with basically recognizing that people are different. People evolve. Again, this is not cast in stone. Earlier, if you remember, Swami, you've seen that quite a bit in your career. The typical time that was being the interval between market researches used to be anywhere between 6 to 7 years. Maybe any brand is willing to, I mean, is wanting to do that in 6 to 7 years. I think it will be a history for that brand, because things are evolving very, very fast. So it's all the more that the marketer should really take cognizance of this heterogeneity which is there, and seeing what are those new patterns which are emerging in the way people are buying things and way people are making decisions. I'm staying in Bangalore, and as you know, it's the called the Silicon Valley of India, and it's a home to many startups, and especially some suburbs that you go into. are full of companies which are startups, and people who are living there also are coming from similar companies. So their lifestyle, their risk appetite, their the way they have planned out things, the way they therefore make purchases are very different. But remarkably, the same thing I saw when I visited Gurgaon recently. Again, it's a small in that sense it's a suburb of many startups that are there. So you can't now call it a north and south market. It's got many other shades to it, and to be able to do that, just knowing that there is heterogeneity in the society really helps us.
So, Sundar, I think this is I think we are seeing great sparks and different threads on how we can take this conversation forward. So, let me try to pull a couple of them together and ask you a very pointed question. So, given that you have a huge background in marketing, a lot of professional and personal experiences, having been at a lot of companies like Wipro and Adobe, and having traveled across the country at a very young age and sort of absorbing culture and ethos as you have discussed. And also another dimension of your career is that you're a prolific teacher, a prolific lecturer, and you mentor a lot of students. So with that in context, the question that I would like to ask you is, if you could set up a marketing curriculum, what would it look like?
That's a great question, Vignesh. I think I agree with everything that you said except for being a prolific teacher. I don't agree with it. I'm not sure whether it's a prolific teaching, but yes, for sure, I'm a very passionate teacher. I love marketing, and I wouldn't mind doing it 24 bar 7. I mean, who can not like marketing? I mean, that's my question. It deals with the human mind. So it's obviously something which is always interesting. If today, if the my marketing curriculum would be there, first of all, there wouldn't be a marketing curriculum. I think it'll be something which is, and why I say that is that this is something that is evolving, right? So I teach a subject called New Age Marketing, and it has been deliberately called New Age Marketing. What comes under it every year and every semester, it keeps changing, because by definition it's New Age. So you can't have a New Age Marketing course which has got old age content in it. That just does not. It is an oxymoron. So if I look at it, I think what I would definitely add to the existing body of knowledge which is already there, well established, and a lot of those criteria hold good. A lot of new things that are true, predominantly with digital marketing, etc., have already come into the curriculum. It's not a new thing. It's been there for almost 10 to 12 years in a serious manner. But what I would like to add is about tenacity, right? I think there is a psychological aspect about marketers which I think needs to be there for every business leader. But I think a marketer needs to have it more than the others. And the reason I say that is, the you know whatever are the changes that are happening in the market, I think it's the marketer's job to be able to sense that, right, first, and then get that knowledge back into the company and re-engineer the company itself towards that goal. It's a very important aspect of marketing, which what we used to call, we used to do it by doing market research or getting information through the sales organization or other secondary ways of getting that information. I think marketing has to own. They have to be the voice of the consumer, right? So how do you really spot a trend? How do you really spot a consumer need and being able to build a business around it, is something which I think is extremely crucial. The second thing I think I would like to add is that that ability and that genuine curiosity to learn about new technologies which are emerging. Because if you just see the technologies which are coming, all of them have an impact on the marketplace. It's not just the marketing software. So here I'm not talking about something which is very directly connected with marketing analytics. Those are a given. I'm not even going there. But I'm talking about technologies which are allied to the area of marketing, and how are they going to have a potential impact on the market is going to be very important. The third thing I would like to say, and probably the last one from my side, we can go on and on, but one thing which comes to my mind is business modeling. Ability to be in a very, very agile manner, how do you rebuild business model, right? We've all been through a recent experience which none of us want to ever remember, which is when COVID happened, right? It took a while, for companies to get to their new ways of doing that. That agility, if you see, was not the same across all organizations. It appeared like that, but when you actually knocked and checked, how many companies have really re-engineered their methods of marketing, one could see that they were very different. So why did that happen? So why did marketers not change quickly enough, and those who did, why did they do it successfully as opposed to the others? I think was about their understanding of the business model itself, because marketing is a subject which does not exist in isolation. It's a part of a larger ecosystem. So the ability to rethink the way the business itself is run, finding out new ways of generation of revenues for the company, thinking about partnerships where you can't do certain things, and that's the typical synergy where you are partnering with somebody else to get more than what both of you can do individually. I think these are areas that I would like them to be a part of the new marketing paradigm as such. um, if you permit me one more, I would like to say the data driven operating model of marketing, the DDOM, as it's called. I think it's very, very essential for marketers to have. I will not like to say that it's a new thing. Again, it's been there for 5 years, but I am afraid that many people, especially at the marketing leadership level, have sort of said that this is something that should be handled by somebody, the new kid on the block in marketing, because it's something that I can get somebody else to do it. It's too important for the CMO to outsource it, or sort of pass it down the hierarchy. If somebody does not have that skill, I think they should go back to their B school and relearn the skill. It's perfectly fine.
And also, like you said, a relationship, like you said at the beginning of the conversation, it's a two-way street, right? So, on one hand, as a teacher, as a lecturer, you're supporting students and giving them the tools and some, you know, the principles and a general pathway on what it takes to be a well-rounded marketer. But at the same time, if I can ask you the other way of the two-way street, which is what has being a lecturer actually taught you, and how have you applied those lessons both personally and professionally?
Yeah, there have been a lot, Vignesh. I think when you teach, I don't know how much my students learn, but I learn and at every stage, because number one, you have to prepare. You have to sit and prepare, which gives you the opportunity to go back and present it. Get that ideal framework. You got to go back and present, because you can't be presenting things which are hazy. So you got to relearn, sometimes learn new ways in which some subject is being thought about. And when you actually when you're preparing like this, one question which comes to my mind very often is that why don't I do it in my work? This framework is so good. I don't seem to have adopted it in my work. So how will it be? Those are forgotten lessons, if I may say. And so I learn a lot when I'm preparing itself for the class. Second thing I have learned is that when you're teaching at the institutes today, a lot of information, 99% of what you are supposed to teach, that's coming from a textbook or from some known source, is already known to students. Today, any content that is there, is available on the net in some form or the other, right? So for them, they don't have to sit in your class to understand what is a standard framework. For example, let me take a basic topic, 4 P's of marketing. They don't need to attend a class in a university to be able to understand what that is. There are enough ways in which they can do it. But so therefore, what is the value add that you are going to do as a teacher becomes important. So when I teach this, one, as I said, I shared, is that I learn by introspecting whether I am doing it myself. Second thing is that when they are looking at it, when my students hear a certain concept, they ask me questions, because they are coming from a different point of view altogether. They're born and then they're being brought up in a different world, a world which is very, very fundamentally different from mine, right? So the ability to, for example, the ability to use technology, is coming much more naturally to my students than it to me. Actually, that should not be the case. I should be the one who's telling them how to use technology, but it's all many times it's the other way around, where they say, sir, you talked about it, and you say that there's a big challenge. You know what, there is a simpler way to do it if you decide to automate it. So not that every time you hear something you can always go back and automate things. You might have your own constraints, but the fact is just looking at it from that point of view and saying that, okay, there are things that technology can solve, and you use technology much more in your work to to tackle all the business as usual topics, so that your time and your mental bandwidth is getting freed up for you to go and do something which is much more strategic, and something that needs your attention much more, is something that I've always learned and admired in my students. Their ability to go on the net very easily, learn things, come back with questions, come back with a counterpoint of view, is very high. And last thing, quickly, if I may say, is I really appreciate how bold they are in a classroom, how participative they are in the classroom, how agile they are. Because to be honest, I struggle to get on to an online teaching marketing online, because I am a person who likes to use the blackboard left to right, top to bottom, jump around the class, go inside amongst the students, use everything I have at my disposal, including my body language, my sarcasm, humor, what you have, play ads. It's a very noisy class that I teach. But I struggled initially to teach them that, but I could not help but observe that they had adapted to it much faster than I had. So it was like, yeah, if I have to teach these people, I have to be agile myself and see, okay, now I probably need to go back and learn how to present something online in an attractive manner, right? So that I'm still able to keep them engaged. So going back to the drawing board and learning, anything, I think I have learnt a lot from them.
So, Sundar, you are somebody who's transitioned from a CMO to CEO, right? And many times the roles, the responsibilities, and the goals are very, very different, right? So, if you are sitting from a CEO shoes today, what do you expect a CMO to do? Okay, and if you are a CMO in the past, what did you expect your CEO to appreciate and understand? Can you kind of do that distinction, because you are somebody who can do that distinction, and that's very critical for a CMO to understand and also for a CEO to understand.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, Swami. I was thinking about it. When I was when I so let me come to the first part, which is that, as a CEO, what would I expect my CMO to do more, and what to do differently? I think one is that I would definitely like my CMO to think more strategically than what his functional silos are permitting him to do that, right? I believe that CMOs are working towards many. I will not say everyone. There are exceptions, and those have to be really commended for the way they have looked at and redefined their own roles. Even when there was no organizational mandate, they've just gone ahead and said, this is what I'm going to do, and they've just gone and done it. Is about being able to break the functional silos about what is marketing, what is sales, what is growth, and all the other allied areas that exist in an organization. The second thing I think I would like to like that person to do is to think big, because I think when we are all sometimes a victim of our past. So for example, there is let us say the growth of a product revenues has been going on for 5 to 6%. That is somehow enshrined in our memory that it can be only 5 to 6%. This is a conditioning which we all claim we don't have, but it is very much there. And how many times have we have raised that, past we have never done anything like this. I don't know how somebody can expect me to do something like this anymore is quite surprising. And that sort of takes me back to a learning that I had when I was reading an article in Harvard Business Review a couple of years back. Is that the way our brain works is that we always try to build the future looking at past parameters, and we expect the future to be a very logical extension of the past, whereas never in history of mankind has any future been a logical extension of the past. So there is a famous Intel joke. It is 286, 386, 486, and then there's a Pentium, and then what next? The Everything in life is not this arithmetic, and it is not so linear as well, right? We have seen from then on, you might have named it for whatever reason in that order, but the computing power itself jumped several times to be able to to keep pace with the total amount of the load or the expectation that existed on an information system, in a business information system that existed. So I think I would expect my CMO to be much more strategic, be able to open through that silo and think through, okay, now tell me, how do I grow by 20%, right? If there is, given that, for example, we've been growing by 5 to 6%, is that mindset, the growth mindset, is it even existing? That's what I would like my CMO to do. And now that I'm not in that position, I can give a lot of sermons. um and the other way around, if I reflect back that when I was a CMO, what is that one thing that I would like my CEO to do is, definitely, I think, to be able to count marketing as a strategic arm, right? In many ways, what happens is it becomes a chicken and egg story. Should a function prove its metal, and then people will take it, look at it as a strategic function, or it's the other way around, that you bestow that kind of confidence or that kind of an importance to that function, and that function somehow decides that they will have to scale up and deliver to that business. So I will not get into that chicken and egg question, but I would say definitely as a CMO, if the times when I was looked at as a strategic leader in the company, I think I have always been able to give more to that role of CMO, and so has not only me, but the rest of my team also acted in that manner, that yes, we are very important, and so therefore we can't let the business down, and we always have to keep performing uh, to our level. So these are two seesaws that I can think of.
So, Sundar, I think you hit upon a very important point, which is a CMO needs to think strategically. Can you dive deeper and then say what is strategic, right? Because it's a very very used word, right? So therefore, what do you think is strategic, and what do CEOs see as strategic?
See, if you look at it, the number one goal for the CEO always has been growth, right? It is the growth. It's growth in revenues, growth in profit, growth in any parameter that holds good for that particular industry. Growth has been a very very important aspect, and the other piece is trust. If you ask me, these are the two things that a CEO has in his mind, where he should be taking these things and sort of building on this. So when I say a CMO should be thinking strategically, one which I just spoke about is finding out, okay, tell me, what do I need to do? Where do I have a plan which is going to help me grow 2x? What do I have to do that? What is the plan that can be given, removing all the self-imposed constraints, right? Many years ago, and let me share a very interesting anecdote which happened with a company that I was a summer trainee, and I was being interviewed by the board of the company for what we used to call as PPO. I don't know whether it still exists, the pre-placement offer that was there. And my summer project had to do something with the softy ice cream market. And the company I worked for was a market leader, but they had not got into the softy format. So they saw the potential. They asked me to do a national market size estimation about what the size could be, and then of course maybe subsequently decide whether it's attractive for them to get into that or not. Now I brought up this thing, in the interview. They said, "Is there anything that you have not liked in the way we work? You have been with us for 2 months, so is there something that you have?" So you can call it youthful exuberance or whatever. It just came out, and it was a very honest opinion. I just said that, look, I don't think we are ambitious enough. Now, to be able to tell the board of directors that the company is not ambitious enough is clear statement against them, because it's the board of directors' job to make the company as ambitious as it should be. So then they asked me, "Hey, you know what? You know why? So why do you say that?" And there was a lot of, you could see the anger and irritation at my comment. And they asked me, "Why do you say that that is the case?" I said, "Look, we are the market leaders, right? And the softy market ice cream format is not something which is new. Why did we not get into that? And why were we waiting for some other smaller competitor to bring it to a scale where we feel that we should be we should be looking at that format? I mean, this is the ice cream business. You've got to be innovative. I mean, any food business, it's very common, and that with a category like ice cream, you've got to be innovative. And we never even thought about another format which is as basic an innovation as you can think of. And so they said, "Look, you know what? You're rubbish. You're 2 months. You've been with us. Don't you know that you got there are hygiene parameters? We don't sell ice cream without which are below a certain standard of hygiene. How are you going to how is it that you're going to be selling it in the softy format?" And I think with the same exuberance, I said, "Look, today you have seen the market, and suddenly, overnight, our research center has come up with an option by which this ice cream, which was not hygienic all these days, can be made hygienic. And we are delivering it. In all our pilots that we were doing, we were delivering ice cream to that hygiene level. So therefore, when you see a market which is large enough, you always figure out the technology, the operations to be able to capture that opportunity. But being the market leader, we have waited for somebody else to teach us is a question that is there. I think so. What, coming back to question, Swami, I think strategic to me is one which is going to give us a significant increase in our revenues and profitability. Something which lasts from a time perspective at least the next 2 to 3 years, and something which the company has to do at a fairly fundamental level to leapfrog. Because the moment you think about making an annual plan for a company, even before, so how do we all make it? And I believe that I'm with friends with you and your viewers later on. How do we all do it? We take the last year's Excel sheets and start building the plan on that. We never question those assumptions. And whereas look at the market, and this is, you can sense Philip Kotler's frustration when he said that markets change much faster than marketeers. I mean, you mean to say in 12 months, and that too the last 24 months of an eventful time, nothing has changed in the market? Nothing is going to be done by competition. No technology which has impacted your life. No change in demographics which have happened. you know so all these things, I think, leaving it aside, I think the habit of coming back to your business, if I may say, just from a work rhythm perspective, if a CMO can come every day to his work, questioning a lot of the constraints which are trying to pull him down and his business down, and think about a workaround, saying, how do we overcome these challenges? Oh, I'm not good in entering China. Good. So can we think about a partner? So sometimes these decisions are parked for someone else to make the decision. I'm a little disappointed when some of us, and I'm no exception till very recently, when I hear CMOs say, Business has to decide this. You are the business. What are you expecting someone else to be? I mean, you are marketing. Unless, for some reason you think business marketing is not a part of business, which is a bigger disappointment for me. I think one should say, no, I'm taking the cudgels. And you tell me which company in its right frame of mind will not have a set of leaders going out there in the market looking for new opportunities, committing that okay, they will make a certain business plan work, and and deliver the goods. No company in its right frame of mind will ever do it. Yeah, they may put some frameworks, they may put certain caveats, and there may be some governance mechanism, which are all very very fair. And but I think the time has come for CMOs to start doing what they were doing very well earlier. But I think over the years that role has been sort of submerged a little bit. That's what I would say. If you can help build that 30% growth for your CEO, and I'm just taking 30% as a very healthy growth. Now in another industry, very very healthy growth may be 12%, and in another startup kind of an environment which is new, 200% may be healthy growth, because it all depends on the base figure. But when I say 30%, it's more symbolic of a healthy growth, and say, look, this is the business I'm going to add with a complete P&L. Not again come back and say I'm going to run these 5 marketing campaigns which will give me 30%. I'm giving you a business case, and marketing is a part of it, and I've thought through everything, and this is how we should do it. I think it's that will be great. That's what I would call it, strategic.
Fantastic points, Sundar. I think you've touched another raw nerve, I would call it, which is thinking of marketing as a business. I think that's a very important thing. Tell me, but more CMOs will keep on saying that I'm not responsible for the product. I'm not responsible for revenues because certain distribution I'm not responsible for. Certain costs I'm not responsible for. So therefore, then how do you think I can be held responsible, because I can only control the budget that you give me, which is the marketing budget. So I'll do more campaigns, I'll do more, branding work, which then is the constraint that they put themselves around. How do they come out of something like this?
I think our life in has been made simpler by first lesson that we got in marketing for me, which is marketing has 4 P's of marketing. So you by taking this position that you just mentioned, you're relinquishing three out of the 4 P's already. And then you can't say that, look, you gave me a four-wheeler, but I have made it a one-wheeler now, because that's all I can do. I think it's some of this concern. I agree with you. This is a very practical situation, and one has to contend with it. But I think that's what I'm saying. When marketers start looking at you know their job as to be running a business and collaborate with the others. So for example, if there's something that is holding us back because there is a certain distribution chain that is not working for us, because of which whatever we do is getting suboptimal. So for example, you're doing a lot of activation in say tier 3 cities. I'm just picking up something like that, without there being a proper distribution there, right? You got to come back and say, hey, you know what, one of the two things is going to happen. One, if nobody is going to do anything there, I am not going to do any marketing there. So which means you got to be very specific about what you want to do, right? I think the challenge with marketers is that many people do sort of communicate in qualitatives. That has to change. That's why I was emphasizing on the topic of the data driven operating model for marketing. It's a zero sum game. How much ever you like, if you touch one data, something else is going to get impacted. So if you want to spend more on awareness, your propensity of your ability to influence purchase might come down, and you have to decide what you want. So it's a in some sense, in a given period of time, it looks like a zero sum game that is there. So if you are data driven and if you are business driven and look at all the aspects. So for example, you are perennially suboptimal in the way you're giving retail margins for a product. The product is not going to work. and you've got to bring it out, rather than keep on saying that, look at my top of the funnel parameters, they are so beautiful, my tofu is great, but my bottom line is not happening. It is very common. This is very common because marketers define their own metrics, measure their own metrics, they present to themselves, and they are feeling very happy about it. The CEO, the CFO of the company does not understand any of these metrics, right? Which are marketers' best kept secrets, right? Now, one of the things which I have learned, and I can't say I always succeeded it, but always have the CFO on your side, because every board definitely has the CFO on it, even though there may be a situation when the CEO of the company is not on the board. There is no way. I mean, CFO may not be on the board, but he's a special invitee to every board meeting. Why is this? Because anything that they discuss, anything they touch, any decision that's making direct impact on the top line and bottom line of the company, and nobody in their right senses will ever want to leave the CFO of that. Now, if the marketer is able to convince the CFO about a certain business case where the opportunities are better because they interact more, they understand their businesses, each other, and if he can make his metrics, the marketing metrics, talk to the financial metrics, you're done, right? Because everybody is going to hear your business case, give one look at the CFO, and if the CFO is saying yes, I am supporting it, I know exactly what this guy is saying, your job is half done. Don't spring a surprise on everybody, including the CFO, when you're presenting a business case. Then people will find enough ways of shooting it down or asking for rework to be done, or whatever that is the case. I think that's a very important and very practical tip I can think of. In fact, in one of my earlier companies that I used to work for, I was invited by a B school to say, "Can you present something on marketing?" I said, "See, you've heard enough about marketing and all that. There are many videos of mine available. Why don't you invite me and my CFO, who, by the way, many people think are sworn enemies in an organization? Why don't we you get both of us, right, and see how we actually interact with each other, and what is it that the CFO expects from me. I will also attend what I expect from the CFO in return. If you can have that two-way dialogue, it is going to and establish a form of trust. Then I think it's going to be a different rhythm."
Great points, Sundar. Great points. I think there's this big joke that's always there, which is when you appoint a new CMO, the CFO always expects a big budget to come his way, right? So therefore, but what you are really saying is look at the business case, look at the business problem, make marketing being embedded in the business. I think that's a great point. I just want to shift our conversation, Sundar, to something that you have been doing for many years now, which is you have been on the tech side of the business, and there are so many, tech companies that build marketing software. It's almost the creator economy, as you would call it, is completely built with this kind of software, where creative itself has become a commodity, right? So therefore, what you thought was extremely, differentiated at one point in time, the software has made it a commodity, right? So therefore, how do you really now differentiate one of the arsenals of a marketer or a CMO, okay, where creative itself has become a commodity and actually software and technology has made it a commodity. So how do you really therefore bring about this change and add an application on top of software to differentiate and build value for a brand?
Yeah, so I think very good point, Swami. It is something which many people ask, saying that when you use a marketing software, let's sort of for the moment restrict our discussion to design software, right? Which is used to making creatives of many types. Now the fact is, this technology is available to every marketer, but yet you see that there are brands, there are people who stand out. Now, if you are finding that the messaging and the quality of creative is becoming increasingly common, which is what you probably mean, that it's getting commoditized, right? Because there is no differentiation, so it's become a commodity, right? It's because people are very consciously trying to benchmark against others and trying to be like the others, right? One thing that I learned very early in my career is, if you want real creativity to come from a team, never be prescriptive about what you want. We often mistake a creative brief, for example, to mean something that you actually go and start drawing on the whiteboard in front of a designer what you want. If you are the marketing head and you walk across and you say that, look, I want a design which looks like this, take my word, it will be a replica of what you just drew. Your idea was to give them an idea about how it should possibly look like, but that person says, what's the easiest way for that person? He would think that if I'd got a creative brief, I would have designed it in a very different way, but this person is telling me what I should do, so I've just done that. So it's like a common minimum program, like our LCM, least common multiple, that we studied. It'll never be the HCF, where from a marketer's perspective, he should always be number one, restricting himself to the insight that he would like to draw. That's where I'm coming to, where the differentiation in the creative will start. It will start at the base, which is what's the insight that you have drawn from a consumer, which again you want it to manifest in your creative and so on. Second thing is, it's important to, these tools and technologies are available to everybody, but I think the person who understands this insight the best and is able to come up with multiple alternatives for this and present it will be the person who will probably be best suited for um, uh, you know for um, for bringing that differentiation in terms of design, so it will not get commoditized, right? I mean, you just take movies for example. I'm taking example of movies because everybody has an equal view of all of that. Now the same software is used to make an Oscar winning movie and another movie which is probably a very mediocre movie. The software is the same. It has not commoditized, for example, storytelling. It has not commoditized the way in which an insight is converted into a message. It has not it has not stopped from people from saying, okay, how do I carry the same insight and the same message across multiple channels? This is where creativity, there is ample scope for a person to create things which are very different. Now, if you, what could potentially be causing this is not access to the technology. I think what is happening is that in the rigmarole that we all sometimes fall a trap to, and that ability to, okay, let's get something done quickly. That quick and dirty earlier was meant to be the first version, but now the final version has to be quick and dirty is a is a very is a very is very detrimental to the brand, for to put it very mildly. So you want something to be done quickly, you want to get something out, you have to invest time in it. There is no doubt about it, and it has to be viewed from multiple angles and perspectives. How will my potential customer look at it? How will my how does it sort of marry to the insight that I want to talk about? How will how does it differentiate itself with the other messaging I'm giving? Do I have an opportunity to take this to a whole new level? I'm a big fan of paperboard, for example. Look at it. You just talked about commodity, right? What can be more commoditized in summer in India than fruit juice, right? And it's available for anywhere between 10 rupees a glass to 2,500 rupees a jar in a five-star hotel. But it is a commodity. It's very much competing with that from a product perspective. Took a very different route. Took a route of packaging. Took the route of pricing it in a unique way, making it available in a certain way, giving a very emotional narrative to a commodity. I always say that whenever a brand has to be launched, it has to be launched on a very functional parameter. you can't take an emotional route. But the exception to this is Paperboat, which they launched on an emotional part, thinking about it's as commoditized as salt, in my opinion. But I think they've fought that very well and come back. Technology will only help you get this to life in terms of how it is.
So I think moving from sort of monoliths to individuals, I think we just touched upon the creator economy, and I just wanted to know that I think we are having multiple technological tools, like you said, which have come into play, like your no code tools and your marketing stacks and your playbooks and other. It's almost like a strategy stack has been built for any individual person to basically go online, set something up, ship it. You have social media to promote it. So when you have so much of energy towards the creator economy movement, what are some fundamental principles of marketing that a creator, an individual, needs to keep in mind as they're trying to grow their product or service in today's economy?
Very good question, Vignesh. Again, it's a one has to definitely try and break that clutter, because it is almost looking like that playbook that you refer to is something which is available on the net, and everybody seems to be you know tends to just replicate and say, okay, these guys have done it, so let me do it like this. I wouldn't like to take the names of the brands because, to be honest, I don't know the sufficient inside story of those brands, and that's why I don't have the permission to use their names, so I wouldn't. But two brands, which are from the same industry, have taken very very different routes to or what appears to be different routes, but ended up with the same result sometimes and different results sometimes. So when you know coming back to your question, when you're looking at uh, building anything that's there on marketing, number one, and we've been told enough number of times, is that I think it needs to be clear on who is the target audience and what is the consumer insight which is driving me towards communicating that business, right? I can give you two examples, very well known examples of Nike as well as Starbucks, right? So the founder is the custodian of that knowledge in these two companies, and they were driven by that insight about how they will grow, how they will improvise, how they will innovate, and so on. The moment they lost sight of that insight, no matter what they did, their marketing mix stopped working. So that's a danger signal for any marketer. If you don't know what is that basic consumer insight on which you're founding your entire business, you're bound to lose track, and you may design the best campaigns, but they will not work because they're not based on a certain insight that you have. So first thing is, whatever you do, check 100 times whether it is answering to that particular insight or not, right? Second thing is, don't get lost with technology. Be very clear what you want technology to do, right? Otherwise you're bound to get confused, bound to be bombarded by lots of types of platforms, technologies, which will all obviously promise you a lot of things. But is that what you really want to achieve? Is that what you really want to get at? Is something that I think you have to make an assessment for yourself. So if, and that clarity you will get if you have a clear consumer insight about what you want to sort of take it forward. So I think it is, yes, I think we are seeing a massive increase in different softwares available across the stack, as you rightly said. But it's like a good marketer decides what to take in and what not to take in. I think the decision has to be made by the marketer. What's going to help him achieve his strategic goal? So there is an insight and there's a goal. How do you move from a point A to point B, and what all do you need, right? I keep telling, even when people are investing in digital marketing, in my classes, and this is what I share with my team, is that just because there are 20 boxes, you don't have to tick all 20 boxes. If you got 100 rupees, you can decide which channels, which formats, which technology you can you want to invest, and it's fine to say no. Great brands, what are they known for? They are known for knowing how to say no, right? A Mercedes Benz never says ghar ghar mein Mercedes Benz. That is not what they want. I know I'm giving a exaggerated example just to make a point, but as a brand you should be clear that no, this is not what I want to do. So I think you've just it's about deciding what are your priorities. So if you, as they say, if you have a hammer in your hand, everything looks like a tool, everything looks like a nail, because you have already made up your mind to use a tool. Because why? Because somebody else has used it. And the other thing, if I may say quickly add, is keep some money in your back pocket from your marketing budget to be able to do these low intensity marketing experiments. So you don't know, for example, how a tool works. I think you should be fine to invest a little bit of money, just giving it like a spin to see what it can do for you. Suppose someone comes and says, I'll help you with social media listening tool. I have something good. Great. If you're convinced that's the way to do it, go ahead and do it. But then what are you expecting out of it? And investing a small amount is fine, but whatever you do in today's world, Vignesh, it's very important that these have to finally talk to the metrics that you have set. Marketing is not today about printing brochures and making ads and getting TV spots and running a clever campaign. People will give you a big pat on the back for having done all this. Of course, these are core marketing functions, but they come at with a lot of accountability about how those resources that have been allocated, how do they justify business. So even before you do any of these things, let us say you're evaluating a analytics tool. What are you expecting out of it? And what's the business outcome that's going to be there? If you're not able to set those goals, then you're taking a big risk in that investment. You may get it wrong. It's okay. As I said, it's only 5% of your budget, which is not going to burn you. And if you don't do these experiments, you may never learn. So you got to balance those two things.
So, Sundar, I also know you're somebody who likes music, and so when did you start learning music? Where did this interest, get, get a spark from? And what really prompted you from, jumping from, somebody who appreciates music to somebody who practices music, and how does this help in your professional life?
Yeah, for me, actually, that's a little tough question because I really don't know when I got interested. I think from a very young age, there was music all around me. In our house, too, there was a lot of music. My mother used to sing, classical, semi-classical, film music a lot, and my uncle used to be, playing a lot of music in the night, which is, from Ceylon station, as we used to call it, and Sannai Varnin in Lalayam. That's where we heard the word Sannai for the first time. There was a lot of music which used to start from 9 o'clock in the night all the way up to 11:15 till the concert used to be over. I used to be listening to a lot of music since I was a child. And from then on, I think there has been a strong urge to learn music. But unfortunately, I started twice and I had to give it up because my father was in a transferable job. As I mentioned, there was a lot of plus in that kind of a lifestyle, but it brought too many interruptions, and we were in areas where there was absolutely no access to somebody teaching music and all that. So I gave it up twice. But I think once what happened was I was listening to a live concert with some of my cousins. I was about 31, 32 years of age. And, the singer at that time, he just, went on to a higher octave. I don't know what happened at that moment. I just said, look, for me, I think this is very, very intrinsic to me. This is too fundamental for me to even sit and evaluate how far I will go with music. I don't think I've ever sat and evaluated that if I sit and learn, what level can I play to. just learning itself is a big thing for me. And that very minute I turned towards my cousin who was sitting next to me, and I told her, you need to take me to the teacher who taught me for 14 long years. I learned the veena from Dr. Rama Parthasarthi. Unfortunately, she passed away 3 years back. So um, to me, I think the construct of that music was very important. So when I would hear a classical raga, I predominantly learned the Carnatic style of music, and when there would be a certain formation, I would say, why does this formation of notes? Why does it create this kind of a feeling in me, with strong feelings in me? So that is how I started learning, and then I could match that. Okay, it is these string of notes which are actually producing this kind of an emotion in me. So it was more like a mixing and matching, and I really loved the construct of every kriti that was composed by the great masters. And I think learning music, I think one aspect, two things I would say, that as a marketer I always look at music as a big tool. You can change the mood in a setting in 2 minutes by changing the music. You would have seen this when you go to a mall on a Sunday night. 8 o'clock they're about to close. They usually play very fast paced music for people to just buy quickly whatever they want and get out, because it's already 8 o'clock and it's coming to closing time. Whereas on a Tuesday afternoon at 2:30, there'll be very very few people in the mall. So you might want them to stay as long as you want them, because then they'll likely to buy more. This is a very, very salesman use of music as a tool. But the big impact music, I think, has on all of us. We may not be even aware of this. I am aware of it because I've been more conscious about it. But even a small child, when you play the wrong note, it's got a scorn on its face, saying that the music is in all of us, I guess. And the second application for me personally has been that fact that whenever there's been a stressful day, or I need to change my mood, I think it comes in very very handy. I remember one incident which happened in Palo Alto. I was there with my leadership in one of the companies I used to work for, SAP, and suddenly Hasso Plattner, the founder of the company, just came and sat in front of me, and he all of us were sitting, and he said, okay, what do you think SAP should do differently? I mean, we were all very innocently, we had gone there to work on something else, and suddenly the founder of the company is sitting in front of us, and what should SAP do? You've got to be very it obviously created a lot of anxiety. But you will not believe this, Swami, it was a blank for me. That entire meeting, I was able to sort of relax by letting one raga, suddenly from nowhere, that raga started playing in my mind, and all I remember of that meeting was that raga that was playing in my mind. I hope I made some sense to Hasso Plattner, because when I went back and checked the payroll of the company, I was still on the payrolls of the company, which meant that I was still around. But what it gave me was, maybe it was like a, what shall I say? It's like a immunity that it gave me from that stressful situation. So you play Nalina Kanti for 2 minutes. I think it can totally take you to a different world. And see that, and other thing is, we in our minds we think about North Indian music, music from the south, music from the east, folk music, and so many other types. The more you travel across India, especially, you'll find that the music actually becomes more and more similar. I've heard people playing some very very ragas which I thought were very 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 typical to Carnatic music, but they were playing it in the folk style. In some boy sitting on a tree in Bihar was actually playing that near my house, and I couldn't help come out and say, what is this fellow, what is this guy playing here of all the places, where I never expected that raga will be played there. Some ragas we are all familiar, right? They are all common between, they are pan India, but even in that, it is there. So You don't need to really put any filters. I think it's a boon if you can really enjoy music. As they say, it's anytime, anywhere.
So, Sundar, given the fact that your joy of music, your understanding, your reliance on it to a certain extent, uh, has a has an edge of a serious self learner, like somebody who's really interested in learning to understand things at a deeper level, connect with things at a deeper level, leverage those experiences to make different decisions, think different about problems and solutions, etc. So, being somebody like that, a question that I have for you is, what advice would you give to young graduates who are coming out of the hallowed marketing departments in the country about what are some of the harsh realities that they have to deal with once they leave the confines of the safe and trusted classroom?
Yeah. So first thing I would like to, I always say that in real life, in business, right? Nobody ever gives you a 15-page case study with all the tables from page number 12, 13, 14, and 15, which as a student you will of course ignore because you will not want, you will not have even got to those pages to solve these cases. And on top it is written as marketing case study, right? And because it is being discussed in a marketing class, you assume it's got something to do with marketing, right? And the problem statement is, why is the revenues of the company not going up? Now how do you know it's not a motivational issue? It's got nothing to do with marketing. It is actually an HR case study, right? So first thing is that silos that exist, uh, because again in a B school you got to teach. You can't be hazy there saying, okay, today I don't know what I'm going to teach you, and let me teach you something which comes to my mind. um, uh, so first of all, things are not this black and white, um, that are there. In business there is ample anxiety, ambiguity, I would say, not anxiety, sorry, I meant ambiguity. And you have to be very comfortable with that ambiguity, right? The second thing is, if you look at the typical B school curriculum, all the subjects which have got some word called strategic will all be in the fifth and the sixth term. So when somebody graduates from there, they will be under the impression that probably they will handle something very very strategic, whatever that means, right? And first day they get into the Tatas, they're going to say, okay, I'm going to meet and say, Ratan, this is what you should do, right? But the fact is, their immediate opportunities are not likely to be in that area, right? Their first few years, maybe 1 2 3 4 5 years, their assignments will be more towards working in, for example, being a sales head, or being a brand manager, or being a finance operations person, or something like that, for the first 5 years. Now this is a tricky situation, because what happens is, many graduates who come, they feel a little frustrated at not being given the strategic arm. They don't realize that if they were to be made a brand manager on day one of their joining a company, and they're made the brand manager for surf, imagine what's going to happen. The number of things that they handle are tremendous. They're not aware of this, to be honest. I mean, in on naivete they may be thinking that way. So what happens in the first 5 years, because they don't get anything strategic, they start to believe that a lot of things that they studied in B school is actually not useful, right? And they say, okay, work is different, studies are different. I am not a believer of that. A company has hired a student from an MBA college to be the future leader. Now their immediate assignments are meant to give them a flair of the business, but they, after 5 years, when they're really required to get those strategic skills out, by the time they have actually given up on those skills. So it's that intellectual preservation, if I may say, of sorts, that you need to do for the first 5 or 6 years to ensure that you still have an analytical mind, a strategic thinking mind, irrespective of what your immediate job role is. And keep all those frameworks and concepts very clear, because when you grow into leadership positions in an organization, it is that conceptual quality which is going to help you in those roles. But if you have become too tactical, by then you will have forgotten those things and not be able to apply. This is my practical study of students, including myself, and how I sort of also thought when that was the case. So the reality is the business world is has a lot more ambiguity than what exists in academic environments. Number two, I think your work will always be a mixture of tactical things and strategic things, different things getting amplified on different in different times in your career. And also for all even during a single day you will have to yo-yo between a lot of things, right? You have two customer meetings, one meeting is a customer escalation. It's a very tactical thing that you need to go fix it. There you're a fixer, you're ready with a screwdriver, you're going to go for a fix it. That mode is very different. Next minute, you're in a situation where you're supposed to have a strategic conversation with with the CEO of a company. That's a very different conversation that you have to have. So that dexterity you have to create. You can't say, oh no, this is not my job, I'm an MBA, I will not do these tactical things. I don't want to use that word, but a lot of people say, the way they said, everybody's has a shit content in their job. And one has to do it. It's a part of the job, it's a part of the learning experience. But the people who intellectually preserve themselves, conceptually preserve themselves for strategic roles, are the people who are going to I think get those roles and be successful in them.
Thanks, Sundar. We're coming to some closing questions, and I want to start off with asking you a first question. What does the word successful mean to you?
I think being happy, right? And with whatever one has done, and a good night's sleep. I think that's being successful, because I think a person who's got the right conscience will be able to sleep. When he knows he's given it 100%. So that's success to me, Swami.
Sundar, my next question to you is, what are some of the books that have influenced you the most over the course of your life and career?
Yeah, thanks. You asked that question. You got someone right next to you who recommended one of those books, and since then I've become very famous recommending that book to everyone. One book which I really like, and thanks to Swami for having recommended it, is God, the Country, and Coca Cola by Mark Pendergast. I think it's a beautiful book. It's a long one. That's the only challenge, but I think it's a beautiful book which talks about how business has evolved, how a brand has evolved, and since it's about Coca Cola, I think everybody can relate to it. That's a great book that I always sort of recommend to people. The second one I would says the book Onward on Starbucks. I think it's a great narration about how how business is always built on consumer insights, and when you lose track of that insight, what happens, and then you sort of struggle a little bit. And the third one is a book called The Leadership Pipeline by Ram Charan. He Unfortunately, I think that book has not got the visibility that it should have, but it's got a very simple construct where Ramcharan talks about six curves, that turns that a person will have to make as he climbs in the corporate ladder. So imagine you're going on a hill, and on a car you go around like this. So you have to make a turn, every time, and failing to make the turn, you know what's going to happen. So he's divided the career into six stages and very beautifully plotted what are the turns that people have to make. So all the way from a junior executive to the enterprise leader, who you may call it a business unit head, or a CEO of a company, or a managing director, whatever, however you would like to do it. Very practical book. These are three of my favorites that I would recommend.
So, Sundar, given your long career and you've had many heroes across many of the categories in the companies that you worked. So if you were given a chance to invite four guests for your dream dinner, who would they be and why?
Okay, one, of course, I would definitely, if given a choice, I would definitely invite God to be one of them because I really want to know how He is and how He looks like. The second thing is, second person I would love to interact and get to know much more of, person I might admire along, is the former chairman of Hindustan Levers, Windy Banga. I have a great admiration for him as a business leader. I think I will have someone whom I would love to learn a lot. The third person I think is Lata Mangeshkar. I think a person whom I think the whole world admires, and I'm no exception, because I really want to check whether that person existed in reality or not. I still don't believe that such a person never existed. It's all a myth that is there. So somebody will have to prove that Lata Mangeshkar really existed. But I think I have taken a lot of lessons from her own life and her music itself. For some things you don't need an introduction, right? For example, somebody who can sing like that, or for example, it's a dumb thing to say. Roger Federer works hard. You know, what do you expect, right? So some things don't need any explanation, right? I think when you look at a rose, it's just so beautiful. Does anybody have to tell us, see how beautiful it is? Maybe if somebody has to tell it, maybe it isn't. That's there. And the last person I think I would like to definitely invite is Charles Chaplin, someone whom I'm a great admirer of, and about the whole art of storytelling and making people laugh. For years, I mean, for a century, he's made people laugh, and all of us know humor is the most difficult genre to treat. So I think these four people would be good to have on the dining table. Only thing for me, if these people are there, there's no eating that's going to happen from me. So I am going to be hungry, and then after the dinner is over, step outside the house to have a vada pav, on Juhu Beach.
So my next question to you, Sundar, is what would be the advice that what would be the 3 to 4 piece of advice that you would give an 18-year-old entering university today?
Yeah, I think the first advice, or I can't call it an advice. I don't know how capable I am of giving any advice. But one thing I would definitely like to share is that I went to university only once. I did my engineering, and then after a few years I did my MBA, and that was the end of my formal education. I think the first thing he's got to be prepared is that this will be his first, but definitely not the last time he's going to enter university. He will enter a different university once again, at least once more in his career, because I think the need to re-engineer himself is going to be there, and he will have to be learning much more than what people of the past did. There's just too much happening, to stay away. So more opportunities for formal education and lots of opportunity for continuous informal learning that will that is going to happen in his or her career. Second thing is, I think I would really like them to focus on the basics. I think today, the moment, for example, uh, when I, for example, I start teaching, and they hear that I'm coming from so and so company, the immediate default mode is, okay, you're going to tell us something about digital marketing, right? But my subject is called integrated marketing communication. I didn't use the word digital anywhere. It may be an expectation that since I'm coming from that company, I will probably accentuate that part more, which I do. But definitely, I think to keep an open mind about what it is and learning the basics of that subject without jumping and coming to pre conclusions about what it is, uh, are the two things that I'm going to definitely say. Third thing, I will also say that I think start building a good professional network. Right, start now. Don't start when you are 45 and One of the unstated KPIs for any professional is what is the professional network he has. And this is not told in any B school. There is no course which says networking, art and science of networking. There is no such thing. There are a lot of interesting articles though, and people have seen the value, so one can learn from there. But it is something that one has to do very naturally. If you're going to a new city, don't sit at home and don't sit in your hotel room alone and have your dinner. You can as well spend it with somebody from another industry. I think what is important is to learn from another industry, not just from your place, but also learn from other sources. Also learn and hear people who are very different from the way you are. You may be in for many surprises. Like for example, I learned that about music, like since we talked about it, that there are other forms of music which are equally melodious and which can capture our mind, very different. I had the opportunity to meet MS Lakshmi once, the famous Carnatic singer, and I went into her house, and somebody was trying to play an African, beat in front of percussion instrument that he had recorded in Africa, and it was being played in front of her. And you should have seen the delight with which she was enjoying it. Imagine how different Carnatic music and African percussion instrument can be. But she saw something in that, that fervor which was there. So I think we can all learn from other sources. So don't be with people who are exactly like you. Since you're getting into a new college, try to network with people who are very different from you, from whom you can learn. It's not easy because we all have our comfort zones. So if we can find another clone of ourselves, we feel very happy. And I've heard a lot of managers say this. I heard that person because he exactly thinks like me. I said, good, wasted talent. Two people are in the meeting are going to sit and you're going to tell, and that fellow is going to listen. Might not as well have him, actually. So I think these are three things that I would say, in addition to, of course, the lovely learnings that they're going to get out of that institution.
Sundar, my next question would be, what is the best piece of advice anyone has ever given you?
I think it was given by the chairman of Unilever the first day I joined. Swami, I joined in Bangalore, and that was the last day on which Keki Dadi Seth was going to be the chairman of Hindustan Levers, as it was called, and he was moving to a global role. He flew down all the way from Bombay to Bangalore just for a few hours to meet and welcome the future leadership of the company. I asked him if there's advice he would like to give me, what would it be? And he said that I think winning the battle in one's mind before winning it in the marketplace is very important. In the mindset that is required, you've got to play that game clearly in your mind, saying, look, this is what's going to happen, this is my plan, and this is how I things will pan out, and these are the challenges I'm going to face, right? Because the world is not waiting for you to come and roll out that plan. The world has its own plans. So what will you do if those plans are at loggerheads with what you see in the ground? How will you overcome and play that entire thing to that level of detail, right? Is going to be very important. I think that's a very valuable piece of advice anybody has given me.
Wow. Okay. My next question to you is what is one thing that you believe in, Sundar, that nobody else agrees with you on?
I don't think there is anything where people don't agree with me for. Sometimes I have a challenge explaining to people why I want to move at a certain pace. Sometimes, and I think I want to go faster. If it's clear in my mind, I'd like to move. I don't like to sit and intellectualize on things which are clear to me. But to be fair, you're a part of a team always, right? And other people may not be as convinced as you are, or they may not be able to see what you are seeing because you are in the market. So I sometimes have a challenge explaining about how quickly I would like to get something done. I get little thrown off the track if people don't immediately agree that, yeah, this is the way to go. Yeah.
So my last question, Sundar. So my last question, Sundar, is who's the guest you would like to see featured in ContraMinds?
Oh yes, I mean there are lots for me. I mean, yeah, definitely. I think love to hear from Pallavi Singh. She's the former CMO of BMW in India. She was at MG Motors for a long time, and she's done some excellent work in terms of segmenting the market for MG Motors. Um, on the basis of a psychographic segmentation. So that was very interesting for me to hear her. I've had the opportunity to listen to her a few times, but every time I hear it, I get a new perspective. I think you should definitely do that. And also I think what would be interesting is getting people from who are managing brands which are icons, right? So for example, you know the person who's actually, I don't know who that individual is, but somebody who runs Jama Masjid, for instance, it's an icon by itself, and it's an organization which is there. So what do they do, what is their business philosophy, what is their communication strategy, how do they communicate to people, learning from a totally different environment that is there. And last but not the least, you should invite one of the guys who runs a lovely bookstall near Fountain in Mumbai. And I'll tell you why. I was buying a book there once, and the young boy, 8 year old, the moment I picked up a book, he brought five other books and said, "If you like this, you will also like these books." So I said, "Yeah, but how do you know this?" He said, "See, I've got you five books. Three of them are by the same author. So if you like one author, it's quite natural you will like other books written by the same author. And the other two are thrillers, crime thrillers, which are in the same genre as this book." I said, "Fantastic. Height of personalization, height of recommendation engine." This happened 22 years back, Swami and Vignesh. You can imagine how all this was, there was no technical. But the shocker came after this. The kid does not know how to read, and he's selling books, and he's getting you books exactly the way you want it. In fact, all those five books, I were not none of those books were something that I could have said, "No, I'm not interested." I think that passion to read a consumer's mind, is something I learned from them. So, I don't know whether that boy still exists around in that format, but just those people who are on the street who bring so much of learning into the way business is done. I think it'll be great to learn from those people who are on contrarian perspectives, and how sort of marketing is done. And of course, I think I'll be very keen to hear from emerging brands coming from Africa, because I think that's one black box for me and many people, I guess. But it's a definite black box. Like China was a black box for many people, 20 years back when we all started off on a business. In many ways, it still is. I don't think I know enough about the market, about a very fascinating market. So while we do that, I think learning about Africa, and because people throw these googlies at me from about that market, it'll be good to know what's happening there and learn from the way African marketers are marketing in Africa.
Thanks, Sundar. It was a thoroughly fascinating conversation. I think the width and depth of what you have gone through in your professional life, the deep sense of, you know, uh, I would say, commitment, and the way you saw it and the way you explained it and the way you had your thoughts on it, and some of the advice that you gave were extremely authentic, and as they say, authentic brands really last a lifetime, and I'm sure that's something that you have learned and you've perfected that art, and that seems to be coming out in this conversation. Thanks a lot, and lovely having a conversation with you.
Thanks, Swami, and thanks, Vignesh. I think when you talk about authenticity, business leader I personally admire a lot is yourself, Swami. I think you stand for the trust. Earlier when we used to work as our agency in our company, and since then, if there's somebody whom you can always go to for a very well-grounded, well-rounded, advice, it will always be Swami. For not just me, I've heard that from many people. So, thanks for having me on this show, and I hope your viewers get something out of it. And very very keen to hear the episodes. I've had the opportunity to listen to few, but will now be a regular listener to the subsequent editions as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode. For selected links and detailed show notes, visit www.contraminds.com/blog. Follow ContraMinds on social media and let us know who you would like to see next on the podcast. If you're listening to ContraMinds on Apple Podcasts, do share your comments and give us a rating. We are keen to know what you're thinking. ContraMinds is also on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and stay up to date on all our releases. Thanks for listening and stay safe.